Hello everyone, my name is Emily Lasinsky and I'm a local artist and I'm also a UPJ professor in the psychology department. I'm here at the Community Arts Center of Cambria County today, surrounded by a bunch of beautiful and awesome, very emotionally charged artwork from local youth at our local high school. It's very cool. I just wanted to put in a plug before we get started today. This exhibit's going to be shown until the 30th, so if you're in the area, if you're visiting, definitely come check it out to admire the work of the local youth. So all right, so why I'm here today, I talked a few months ago, I talked with Angela about possibly coming in and doing some kind of art activity that can help with overall wellness or mental health. We're doing it in May because this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so always good to have coping strategies and things that are available to kind of engage in when you're either feeling down or just, preventative, right? Because we all need things to go to express our emotions. And so today, as far as art activity, I'm going to talk about art or visual journaling. And really, it's pretty much the same as writing in a journal, but you're using images, different types of mediums, depending on what you have available. So simply, it can be a notebook and a pen, or you can get into things like collage, paint, drawing with different types of utensils, which I'll show some examples here in a second. But the idea behind art or visual journaling is that we don't always have words to express what we're experiencing, right? And that could be something positive, it could be something that we're really having a difficult time with. And so expressing ourselves visually still helps us to express what we need to, but in a way that's more accessible, right? And so in terms of who art journaling, populations that art journaling is really for everyone. So it can be a kid in preschool, it can be someone who's retired, and just really a way, again, to express themselves. I teach in the psych department, as I mentioned. I teach the clinical and counseling classes, and in pretty much all of my classes I teach, I really emphasize how important it is to express ourselves. And that can be through art, it can be through music, it could be through walking in nature, right? But we all need to have multiple ways, things that we can go to in order to cope when things are tough. And so some specific examples of individuals who might want to engage in art journaling, people going through periods of transition. I think that we can all agree that a lot of things are uncertain right now, so we might all feel like really kind of unsteady, right? Doing an art journal, whether it's making an entry every day, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, it can be a grounding practice. It's a safe space that we can go to express ourselves amongst all the uncertainty that is going on. Another example would be someone who is experiencing depression or anxiety. Again, with the emotional expression, sometimes we can't express ourselves verbally, and so having the journal to go to safely express what we need to can help to alleviate some of the emotions and just the overall experience of depression and anxiety. And then my final example I wanted to share is for creatives, right? Whether you're a dancer or a visual artist or a digital artist. We all have points, and as an artist myself, I can attest to this, we all have points where we get blocked, right? We might make a bunch of stuff, have a show, do all these things, and then be like, I don't have any juice, right? I don't know what to do. And so keeping an art journal is a way to kind of put in your ideas, experiment, totally not about perfection, right? I know a lot of artists who deal with perfectionism, and so it's so much more about process. Again, expressing your emotions, getting your ideas out. It's not about perfection. So I wanted to note too, I have my notes here that I'm looking off of. Whenever this video is posted on the socials and everything, there will be a link to a handout that you all can access that gives a little bit more structured information on some of the things that I'm going to talk about in this video. All right, so in terms of materials, as I mentioned, it can be as basic as a notepad or a notebook and a pen, right? I really think that it's important to emphasize accessibility. Not everyone has fancy art materials. Like if you do, cool. I'm going to Michael's, Five Below, and other places where I can get some cool stuff but not break the bank, right? And so I have some examples here of an art journal. It can be something like this. This has lines in it, so that might get in the way for some people. But what I like about this kind of journal is that the smaller size, so it's not as intimidating, but also you could decorate it, right? There's a lot of people like that, and then might kind of draw you to your journal by having some kind of decoration on the front or the back as well. The one that I chose, I got this at Michael's, I think it was for like $5. I like this one again because it's a smaller size. If I'm just going to spend about 15 minutes on an entry, I can do that in the space provided. Another reason why I like this is pretty sturdy. I tend to drop things, but I also like the thickness of the paper. And so you can use, like I said, you can use many mediums, and I have some examples here, but the thicker the paper is, the more that it's going to hold things like paint, collage, if you're going to use glue and things like that. And so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to show a couple examples, and then I'm going to do 2 prompts, show you all kind of some examples, not really drawing from my own experience because I'm not going to bare my soul online, but some examples that I think are probably relatable to a lot of people. And so the first example I have here is a strengths collage. And this can be something, Google image, some strengths, print them out, paste them on here. At the top here, I just wrote the word strengths in marker. And I like this activity because a lot of times we can think about all of our faults, but when it comes to our strengths, we get hung up. And so it's a nice way to really think about, what are my strengths? What do I bring to the table? For those of you who are looking for a job, I've actually used this activity with my students in one of my classes. You're going to be asked, what are your strengths? What are your areas of growth? And so it's important to really take some time to reflect on your strengths, especially if this is something you have trouble with. So for me, work ethic, humor, resilience, open-minded, empathy, and of course, I like to be creative. And so what's nice about the art journal is that you can always look back. Right? So if you're having a hard day and you're just like, man, I can't do anything right. I'm never going to do anything with my life. You can say, oh no, that's a lie, right? I actually have a lot of strengths and I'm working on it. So that's one example. Another example of how you could use an art journal is simply a to-do list. And this is similar to bullet journaling. That's a whole big thing in itself if you want to look that up. But basically, visually representing what you have to do. And this doesn't have to take a whole hour, right? Because I know a lot of us don't have time. But here, I have oil change, I'm going to look at some emails, Zoom meeting, etc. And then my goal would be to be in bed by 10:30 because I'm getting old. So again, it's a nice way to plan for the day. If you keep track of things either through apps or digitally, that's cool too if that works for you. For me personally, I like to write things down so then I can have a little check mark and be satisfied by the check mark. So to-do list, kind of keeping track of your tasks for today or for the day. And then finally here I have an example of a painting of a peaceful place. This is actually a little bit darker than what I intended, but hey, it's not about perfection, it's about expression. And so for me, I like to be out in the woods, I like the mountains, I like to be surrounded by green, not looking at my phone. I think a lot of us could probably use that. And so when I was thinking about painting this is a place of peace. So that's a prompt that you could use when you're looking at your journal. Maybe there's just a lot of chaos going on right now. Think about a place or a situation that could be maybe getting coffee with friends that brings you peace, that again you can look back on when things are just chaotic, right? And so those are the examples that I have using 3 different mediums, collage. The second one, the to-do list, was just basic marker, and then acrylic paint. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is give an example of using pastel to do some emotion exploration. And these 2 examples that I'm going to do are listed in the example prompts in the handout that will be, the link will be provided. And so the first one is looking at emotions. Think about, whether you want to split the paper down the center here or kind of do it, hot dog style, hamburger style, but section off two sides of a piece of paper. And this prompt, or what we're going to be thinking about, is that an emotion that might be unpleasant that you've been experiencing, maybe more often than what you'd like, right? And then on the other side, I'm actually going to do this hot dog style. The other side, think about an emotion that you want to experience more, right? So maybe something that's been really tough, you've been experiencing a lot of, and then on the other side, what do you want to experience more of? And the purpose of this is to become aware of our emotions. A lot of times, people think, I don't need to express my emotions, whatever, that's weak. That's just so far from the truth. Emotions are information. They alert us to take action. Sometimes, things like anger. Anger's a fine emotion, right? It's not good or bad, but they tell us like, hey, I got to do something about this, or things could potentially get worse. So sometimes we categorize emotions as good or bad. It's their information, right? And so an example that I was thinking of that I know myself I have felt a lot, but I know this is a very common experience, is the feeling of frustration. Right? You're working toward a goal and you're doing all the things, whether that's a school project, it's a house project. Somebody might be trying to get in shape and they're running, they're doing all the things at the gym, they're watching what they eat, and they're just not getting anywhere. And so when I think about frustration, I think about the color red because it's very much it can be associated with anger. And so what I'm going to do in terms of expressing this is I'm going to visualize frustration, but I'm also going to kind of act it out, right? So when I'm frustrated, I just, just not really worried about any shape or anything else, just actually kind of getting your frustration out using the pastel. And these are soft pastels, so you don't have to push too hard. And so really expressing that frustration through the movement of the pastel. You might want to add a couple other shades here. I can actually feel myself getting hot doing this. Maybe I'm pressing too hard. Another thing when I think about with frustration is just kind of like just feeling blocked, right? Again, I'm attempting to do things, it's not working. It's not working, and it's not working, right? And so this is, kind of a simple drawing, but to me, that is expressing my frustration. This is an emotion that I'm experiencing more often than what I'd like, right? I'm getting to know this emotion. As you're doing that, thinking about, why is it that I'm experiencing frustration more? We all go through periods in our lives where we're going to experience things like anger, frustration, disappointment. Again, it's not a bad thing, but as you're doing this kind of visual act, thinking and reflecting about, okay, so what's kind of with this frustration? Is there anything underneath the frustration, right? Is there anger? Is there disappointment? Is there sadness, right? And so once you get kind of done with the emotion that you're struggling with, and you can take as much time as you want with this, think about what you want to experience more of, right? And so I think for a lot of us, we'd like to experience joy, right? So when I think about joy, I think about like a bird flying, just freely and kind of just going where it wants to go. And so again, I'm not really thinking about any particular kind of shape or object. I did mention the bird, but the colors that I think of when I think about joy are blue and yellow. And so I'm just going to kind of make some swirls here. Kind of like freely flowing, not really worrying about kind of what things are going. I guess for me, joy and freedom are connected. It's kind of just, going with the flow and allowing things to kind of happen as they happen. We'll put some sparks of yellow in here. So even though I thought about this, prior to doing this video, I've even noticed in myself a difference between doing this, like remember I said I was kind of feeling hot, and just thinking about joy and the experience of joy, right? And again, there's no right way to represent any of this. For you, it might be frustration, might be blue, right? There's a whole field of color psychology out there if you wanted to look into that, but it's very subjective, just like all art. All right, so once you have your emotion represented that you'd like to experience more of, another way that you could reflect on this is to think about how is it that I can decrease my frustration, right, and get more experiences of joy? What actions can I take? Maybe I need to change the environments that I'm in. Maybe I have to work on my thought patterns, right, because maybe I'm really getting trapped up in negative thinking. And so a lot of this might be different than other art forms that you've experienced, right, where we're learning how to draw. We're really focused on technique. The kind of stuff that I do and what can be really helpful in terms of emotional well-being is the act of the artwork, but also that reflection piece, right? And so you might want to, on the next page, you might want to write a little reflection, notes in terms of explaining this a little bit. You don't have to. You might want to write a poem. A lot of different ways to reflect on emotions. And so I don't want to make a mess here, but really cool thing with pastels, and we're going to be doing charcoal here next. But you have all the little debris here. But if you wanted to blend, what I use a lot of times are just Q-tips. And so you can go in and kind of blend the colors together. Like that. You can even extend the colors if you wanted. It's always good to have a trash can handy too, so you can kind of blow away some of the dust. Another thing, and I got these at Michael's the other day, is just like these little blending tools. And so they allow you to have a little bit more control over the surface that you're blending. And so same idea, and then with this, I like that you can kind of almost like draw with it. So you can do that with a Q-tip too, but I think it's a little bit more controlled with this kind of tool. So just some ideas. You can use your fingers too, which that's what I do, to be honest. I like actually engaging with the piece. Years ago, I was here and I did a live finger painting. And I remember Angela, she's like, I remember you were here way back when. And I was like, yeah, that was a while ago. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend, getting possibly toxic paint on your fingers, but there are many ways to blend and kind of manipulate your work as you see fit. So, all right, I'm just going to get the pastel on there. So, all right, so another activity or another prompt that I wanted to look at was negative thought patterns or thoughts or beliefs that could be potentially getting in the way of your goals. We all have them. There are things called cognitive distortions, which, again, that's another thing if you want to Google. But they're faulty thought patterns that can really keep us stuck, right? And so over time, if we don't work on them, if we don't become aware of them, they can become ingrained and affect pretty much every area of life. And so this activity, again, looking at a limiting thought or thoughts or a limiting belief. And so for a lot of people, that belief is, I am not good enough, right? I am not smart enough. Oh, I'm too old to start again. Or I'll never get a degree. Using this kind of extreme language of, I always mess up. I'll never get that degree. I'm always going to be at this level. I'm never going to get that promotion. So all that stuff over and over again, if that's the reel that we're constantly listening to, again, that's going to impact us and possibly you can self-sabotage yourself. So what I'd like to do for this one is to visually represent what I think not good enough, that belief of I'm not good enough looks like. And so I'm just gonna write up here first, that belief. You have to be careful because anytime you use the words I am, what follows it is what you identify with, right? And that can really affect your core. And like I said, everything else you do. So I am not good enough. All right. And so if someone has this belief, they could think, well, I'm not going to try out for the team. Again, I'm not going to try for a promotion. I'm not going to ask this person out because I'm just going to fail all the time. So really keeping yourself in this really small closed box, right? And so kind of the visual that comes to mind when thinking about not being good enough, feeling very deflated. And so kind of what I thought about was a flower. Kind of looks kind of wilted, It's alive, but it's not looking that great. Potentially, maybe there are some environmental concerns, not getting the nutrients that it needs. And so, I am not good enough, represented by the wilted flower, right? And there's a lot of reasons why a person might have this belief. It could be influenced by maybe bullying at an early age, maybe family life, maybe trying things and just things not working out in life. We all go through just really difficult stuff, but for some people it just seems like when it rains it pours, right? So we're actually going to put some rain on there too. Maybe like a little cloud. And what gets really tough, especially in the world of social media, right, is that we compare ourselves to others. And it's really difficult not to do because a lot of times we learn from others, whether that's through modeling, looking at older siblings, or celebrities, right, musicians, and we kind of, as younger people, we need to have models that we look to. And sometimes those could be good, and sometimes they're not so good. And so what I'm doing here, I'm using a charcoal stick. This is potential to get your hands a little bit dirty. You could use a charcoal pencil if you want more control. I like to use the charcoal sticks. I just like the feel of it. And so you have these other flowers here. Maybe they're good at a particular sport, or maybe, they have a house and kids, they have a great career, or so it looks like, right? But when you have these comparisons, it just makes it reinforces that belief, right, that I'm not good enough. So you already believe it yourself, then you see things on social media, and it's like, wow, it's evidence. I'm not good enough, right? And that's just, again, it's just simply not true. It's kind of yourself playing tricks on yourself. And so, here we have this visual, the flower, the wilted flower. Others, maybe looking at, wow, like their petals are really nice. Their color is really nice. Their leaves are really, they're really big and nice, and mine are all wilted. Pretty much depicts, I think, that belief of not good enough. And sometimes if this belief is so ingrained, a person isn't going to take risks. They're not going to try anything new. In terms of a relationship, if someone had a really bad relationship, and then they compare with other friends, maybe who are married and have other relationships that are deemed healthy, they might not take the risk. Right? Because I'm just not good enough because so-and-so broke up with me, this many years ago. And so you could put in any example in there, but the reflection piece with this is to not just kind of dwell and be like, wow, I'm not good enough. It's to think about what's behind this belief, right? What kind of went into this? Whether it was maybe some kind of family experience, maybe it was an experience that was just so tough, right? And you just can't feel like you can get unstuck from it. But spend some time with that, right? It's really difficult to move forward if we don't identify what's keeping us stuck. And so I know that for this video, I'm talking a lot. Ideally, if you're doing an art journal, you don't have to talk at all, right? You can just kind of express yourself. It is helpful, I think, to have prompts, especially if this is something that you're just getting started with. Like I said, I put a couple in the handout that's going to be available. But also, if you look online, art journal prompts, I'm sure you can find a bunch that are suitable to your situation, right? And kind of the overall wellness aspect of this, as I kind of already mentioned before, is that it's a safe space to express yourself. You're getting down, whether it's thoughts, emotions, whether it's just an organizational method, right? It's a place where you can come to and consistently come to. I really want to emphasize that, because if you want to do it maybe once a month, it's probably not going to be as effective in terms of helping you emotionally, or in other ways as well. It doesn't just have to be emotionally. And so I would say 2 to 3 times a week would be good. It would be nice to have kind of a space where you do this, if that's available. Keeping it at the same time so that oh yeah, 8 o'clock, I'm going to do this before, I watch TV and go to bed. So just kind of creating it as part of your routine. After you get a couple entries, maybe you've been doing it for a month, looking back for themes. And so maybe you might notice, like, oh wow, at the beginning of the month, I was really struggling. And I know why that is. Looking back, I know why. The middle of the month, things were getting better, right? And so it's a way to kind of track things. You could track your mood, you can track emotions, again, thoughts, kind of maybe tracking how you kind of view yourself too. It can be used in so many ways, right? And it can be really helpful for mental health. You don't have to have, depression and anxiety to do something like this, right? It's really whatever you find your focus or your purpose is. It's just a really nice way to keep things all in one place, and again, a way to express yourself. I do want to emphasize, because we're talking about May is Mental Health Month, that art is a great way to cope. It's so nice to be able just to go to a drawing pad or a canvas, and it can be pretty immediate. But I did want to say that it's one tool in the wellness toolbox. And so therapy, if that's something that a person finds helpful, keeping this and then going into therapy and saying, oh yeah, like I had a really bad day Wednesday, and this is kind of what I drew to kind of depict what I was experiencing, can really be helpful for the therapist to understand better what's going on. Medication, right? Medication, I know that people have different views on that, but that can be part of a wellness tool in the toolbox. Getting outside. I can't emphasize this enough. It's been kind of rainy the last couple of days. As humans, we need to be in nature and be outside, getting exercise. And then, of course, watching what we eat, eating nutritious foods, not just eating a bunch of Skittles. I love Skittles. But so really one tool in the grand scheme of things, but I truly believe in it. This is something that I've been an artist since I've been young. It's helped me so much in expressing myself, although I'm very wordy now when I teach. But so I hope this was helpful, gives you something to think about, especially for maybe kids and teens who are going on for the summer, and maybe they're just trying to think about something to do to kind of keep them engaged that's not technology. Might be a good idea. If you find yourself in that kind of midst of transition and you're experiencing a lot, feeling a lot, it's just nice to get things out. To externalize would be kind of the proper term. And so I will get that, we'll get this posted. I have a Facebook art page and Instagram. I post different kind of art and wellness kind of stuff if you'd like to follow that. Definitely look out for other events happening at the Community Arts Center. I was just mentioning to the videographer here that there's so much going on, right? A lot of times, I am from the area, and a lot of times people are like, oh, there's nothing to do. There's tons to do, right? So a lot of events, a lot of nice community building kind of activities. And so, all right, well, thank you for watching, and I hope that you all have a good rest of the week.